Gaur Purnima is coming up, start of our new year. This Gaur Purnima is actually our new year. It's the real new year, the birth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? That's the real beginning of everything, the appearance. What other day could it be? So that's going to be next Monday. Then Parikrama, the official Navadvip Parikrama begins tomorrow. So actually, Chinmoy, yesterday we had with Govinda Nandini a video darshan, and the video that she happened to select, it was just the next one because we're going through chronologically in the order you posted them, and it happened to be the one where Srila Sridhar Maharaj is talking about the Navadvip Dham Parikrama. Someone asked a question about it, so that felt very auspicious. Okay, well, does anyone want to suggest a topic for today or has a question? I think.
I have a topic if nobody else.
Okay, cool.
We often talk about the negative, detract the positive. Maybe we've talked about this before, I don't know, but I'm just curious, maybe if you could speak something about that, what that means to increase the negative in ourselves. Because we see oftentimes in the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example, they can seem very negative, and that's a positive. So just wondering if maybe you could talk about that a little.
There was this really beautiful line. Would you mind passing me Loving Search for the Lost Servant? We were reading from the other day, and there was a line there. Oh, that's right. He was saying, this is our strategy. Let me find it. Yeah. It was, it's really, really funny. Sometimes Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she talks about it like we have a game plan, because it's, I mean, like if you're really thinking about it in a real serious on the ground way, it's like, I'm here and the Lord is there, and how can I connect with him? Like, let me sit seriously and think about this in a practical way, right? Like that's actually what this is. And so sometimes Srila Sridhar Maharaj talks about that, like in a scientific way, like how can we draw the attention of the Lord? This isn't just like some abstract remote thing, but in the here and now, why am I not experiencing divine love? Right? I've heard Gurudev talk about it like that too. Like we should examine ourselves. Like all the scriptures are telling us this, all the sadhus, the saints are telling us this. So why don't I have it? Let me examine myself. Where am I going wrong in a serious way? And so in a few places, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he speaks like this, like there's one place where he says, it's in Subjective Evolution. He says, we must prove to the Lord that we are the most needy. Like we need to prove with evidence that we are in need of his mercy. And then there's this other line we came across in yesterday in Loving Search for the Lost Servant. And he said, like, he was speaking about this principle of negativity, and he was saying, this is our strategy for attracting the attention of the Lord. Let me see if I can find it. It was so beautiful. Oh yeah, this is, okay, yeah, this whole part is, so I'm going to read all of this. Is so beautiful. Srimad Bhagavatam says that divine love is the most desirable and original thing. We must not allow ourselves to run here and there, searching for base fulfillment. We must forcibly concentrate our attention on divine love. We must forcibly concentrate our attention on divine love. Divine love is the highest thing for us. It is the highest in creation, the highest in eternity. And to take our stand in the negative position is the strategy of remaining in the relativity of the highest quarter of service to Krishna. To take our stand in the negative position is the strategy of remaining in the relativity of the highest quarter of service to Krishna. like, you know, like if we really think about this in a realistic way, like we are so far down here, and we want to attract the attention of the supreme absolute, right? Then that's not an ordinary thing. That's not a small thing. Now, how can we like realistically attract attention, love, mercy from the highest quarter? We have to embrace a realistic view of our position, right? We have to embrace, you know, what is our actual position within the relativity of the absolute, right? Not within the relativity of our own concocted idea of what is what, not within the relativity of this concocted mundane world that is based on misconception, but within the relativity of the absolute, within the relativity of the infinite. What is my position, right? I may have, like Gurudev mentioned, you know, everyone has some ego, pratishta, even a rickshaw wala. A rickshaw wala in his daily life may not seem like a very important person, but when he goes home, he's the ruler of his kingdom, right? He has his kids and his wife, and he bosses them around, right? He's also lording it over, right? So everyone, you know, even a beggar on the street, you know, there will be like a hierarchy in the world of beggars. Who's a, you know, I've been begging on this street for the last 10 years. You gotta submit to me. I get first pick, right? Like everyone has some opportunity to lord it over others, right? And that's like their own, that's a concocted world that they've created. Everyone has the opportunity to put themselves at the center of their own concocted world, right? But we need to step out of that and actually look, where do we stand within the relativity of the infinite, right? We have to give up that ego of mastership, of domination, and actually look in a clear, honest way, you know, what am I actually? You know, I'm one, you know, and then this is why Sambandha Gyan is so helpful for us, right? There's divine humility. That's something else. There are different types of humility. There's just kind of like realistic, there's humility based on a realistic assessment of our condition. That's one type of humility, which is, for the most part, the most we can hope for at this stage. But there's another type of humility which is born out of divine love and divine relationship, deeply feeling one's relationship connection with the Lord, right? But in our position, you know, having a healthy dose of Sambandha Gyan, right, that will bring us to a healthy position of humility. Just being aware, right, like it's mentioned in the scriptures, this universe is like one mustard seed in a bag of infinite mustard seeds, right? And all of that just constitutes one tiny, tiny, negligible part of the whole of the Lord's creation, right? So then where do I stand? This universe is like one mustard seed in a bag of infinite mustard seeds, and I'm one soul amongst billions and trillions of souls, and one of those insignificant mustard seeds, right? Like this is our actual position, you know. And yet we've been given this prospect, and we've been given this chance that we can have a relationship with the absolute. Not only that, but even one infinite tiny soul, they have through the power of love and devotion, they have the power to capture that supreme absolute. You know, and then this is what we hear about the great devotees, right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentions how Saraswati Thakur, he said, this is where you see, this is the evidence of real devotion, where that supreme absolute, he submits, right, to the love of his beloved servant, right, who constitutionally speaking is very insignificant, cannot compare, right? But through love, he allows himself, no, he wants to be conquered by his devotees, right? That is the nature of the Lord. So this negativity, it's, yes, it's how we attract the Lord, because this is the thing, because he doesn't, it's not that we have anything to bring to the table, right? It's not that the Lord is it's not that we're owed anything. And it's not that the Lord is obliged to give us anything. Not that he needs anything from us. Not that we can do anything to help him or impress him. So our only hope is to draw his mercy, right? This is beyond the realm of justice. This is a higher realm, beyond calculation and justice. This is a matter of mercy. This is beyond law, beyond calculation, beyond justice. This is the realm of love and mercy. So how can we attract his mercy? That not that we have any right to a relationship with the Lord, you know, with the Vaishnavas, but there's no right there. We can only appeal to their mercy. And so how do we attract mercy? By embracing our negativity, right? By embracing our smallness, by embracing our helplessness, by embracing our neediness, right? And this, in a word, is Sharanagati, right? Surrender. And so, yes, as Chinmoy Prabhu is pointing out, like, this isn't the negativity is how we will normally think of it in this world. This is, we could call it a type of positive negativity, right? It is a positive negativity where we are embracing our neediness, right? Where we are leaving space. We are removing, emptying ourselves of our false ego. And we're leaving space to receive, to become vessels, right? That is our aspiration. We want to become instruments. We want to become instruments of the Lord's divine grace, divine will, right? We want to be holders. We want to be carriers of that. And so we have to empty ourselves of our own false conception of ourselves. And Goswami Maharaj gave a very nice example of superconductors, right? There are different types of materials that can conduct electricity, right? And, you know, like wood cannot conduct electricity, right? It doesn't conduct electricity, right? It will block the current. But then metal conducts electricity very well. Ceramic, you know, then there are different materials, and some are better than others at conducting, right? And so, and how is it that they're able to conduct? Because there's no resistance to the current. So our false projected conception, egoistic conception of ourselves, that like puts a block on that current, that divine current. And so we want to empty ourselves of our false conception, of our false ego. And we want to ultimately become these superconductors, you know, through which this divine current is flowing. So it is a very wonderful thing, actually. And yes, it can be bewildering, you know, when you see some of these expressions of the great souls, because this is the thing, right? Like if you're not in connection with that current, if you're not drowning in the beauty of the Lord, and you read these types of extreme expressions of humility, it can be very bewildering because you don't know what's on the other side, right? It's like for example, you look at how the Goswamis in Vrindavan, how they lived, right? They lived under trees. They lived, and Vrindavan's not an easy place, you know. We were just there. It's a place of extreme heat and extreme cold, you know? And this is going back a few hundred years where things weren't as developed as they are now. And, you know, living under trees with not wearing proper clothes, just wearing loincloths, and living on dried bits of bread and buttermilk, right? And sometimes nothing. Lives of extreme austerity. So then some people look at that and they imitate that, right? Oh yeah, it's about renunciation and I can do it, right? I can hack it. But what we have to remember is what is it that they're experiencing on the other side, right? On the bodily plane, they're showing this extreme austerity. But how can they do that? Because they're living on something else. They're living on the prapana jivanamrita. They're living on a special type of nectar that the surrendered souls can taste. Right? That's what they're living on. So we don't know what they're tasting, right? Because we're only acquainted with mundane rasa, prakrita rasa, material taste, material flavor. That's what we're acquainted with. So we don't understand. There's rasa on the other side. They're tasting a prakrita rasa. They're tasting spiritual rasa. So they're satisfied by that. They don't need anything from this world. Right? They're completely fulfilled by this higher fulfillment, this higher taste, this divine connection with the Lord, supramundane rasa. So that's why it can be very bewildering to see the behavior, the expressions of the great soul, because we don't know what's on the other side, right? And so we see these expressions of, like Kaviraj Goswami, it's painful, right? That that he has that famous expression, I'm lower than a worm in stool. Right? Even if Moranam Shunale Tar, like even if you hear my name, you'll be contaminated. Like that's how sinful I am. Right? This is the expression of Kaviraj Goswami. So how do we understand that? It's because he's so deeply connected with the beauty, the mercy, the love of the Lord, that he's feeling himself to be correspondingly very small, right? He's in connection with such a great degree of purity that he's feeling himself to be impure. It is, like one helpful analogy that I find for this is like to understand how beautiful this actually is, like when you're standing in front of a huge mountain and you suddenly feel so small, right? You're standing in front of a big, beautiful mountain and feeling so small, but it's a happy smallness. Like, oh, how wonderful is the Lord's creation, how great and magnificent it is, and how small I am. But that's a wonderful, happy smallness, right? So, that's one point. And another thing also, like when we look at some of these songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, yes, on the one side, he's expressing this like extreme humility from his own heart. But our Gurudev, he also expressed that, Bhaktivinoda is also helping us to understand our own condition and our own heart, right? Because when you read some of those songs, it's kind of like a painful look in the mirror. Like some of those songs, he's so upfront about the human condition, and it's not always pretty. It's very raw, like in particular that song Amara Jivan Sada Papera Tanahi Ko Punyara Lesh. Like that's one of the most extreme ones, right? What's that? Amara Jivan Sada Papera Tanahi Ko Punyara Lesh. Pure de udvega dia chi jekoto dia chi jivere klesh nija sukha lagi pape nahi doi. No, like he says that it gives me happiness to see the suffering of others. That's a thing. There is a word for that in German. I'm sure Gangalila knows it very well. Schadenfreude. Like there's a word for that. It's a something in the human condition, right? I'm always acting on the basis of my pride and some very things you read and it's like, oh God, like
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, that word. Yeah. Pronounce
Yeah.
it. Yes,
Schadenfreude. Yeah, it's the happiness that is damaged.
So, you know, he's like every time I read that song, I sing that song, it's so purifying, you know. Pada dukkha, yeah, very nice, Abhisheku, thank you, yeah. Pada suke dukkhi sada mitya basi, pada dukkha sukha koro. That's right. It's you know, like reading that song, chanting that song, it's like it's being a mature student. Like, okay, this is my condition. Let's get real, right? None of this toxic positivity stuff. Let's just be real, right? And that's actually very positive. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to sit in a corner and cry. But no, okay, this is my condition. Now let's be proactive. Let's do something about it, right? And there's one of my absolute favorite quotes of all time. I'll read that. It's also here in here it is. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes. This is also in Loving Search. If we examine ourselves, we will read and cry. What have I done? What is my necessity? And how am I passing my days? I must repent, cry. I have passed my days uselessly. I am a traitor to my own self. I am committing suicide. My real complaint is against myself and my so-called friends. We have nothing to do here. So then what is, are we going to get a little like pat on the head, pat on the shoulder? It's okay. Is that what we're going to get? No. Then what does Srila Sri Maharaj say? So read and cry, do or die. Progress in the right way, or you are inviting your death. The general tenor of life, of all existence, in the most scientific way will be this: search for Sri Krishna, reality the beautiful. That is the highest goal, not only of humanity, but for all creation. And all problems are harmonized and solved by that. So I love this because Srila Sri Maharaj is speaking very direct and proactive way with so much clarity. Like, yes, this is my condition. Don't sit and cry about it. Get up and do something, right? And in a real way. That's the thing, right? If we're actually, we're not interested in imaginary Krishna consciousness. If you look on Instagram or Facebook, I guarantee you, you will find thousands of people who are practicing imaginary Krishna consciousness. I mean, I'm sorry. But every day when I look on Instagram, I need to stop looking Instagram. I'm disturbed by how much imaginary Krishna consciousness is going on. And I'm like, that's not what my Gurudev taught me. You know, like we are actually, like, let them all go on. You know, and a lot of people are making money out of Krishna consciousness. It's like, it's getting big. It's getting big, you know. Not going to mention any names, but there are people making big bucks on Krishna consciousness. So anyone can go out and do that, but we're not interested in that. We actually want something real. And what does a real student do, right? A real student has to really look in the mirror. A real student needs to be critiqued by their guide, by their tutor. And how and why? So that they can become better, right? That's our best friend, actually, who's telling us with affection, oh, this is where you're going wrong. That's our best friend, not a flatterer. So this, you know, and this is something that is completely separate from low self-esteem, right? It's just having clarity on our situation. If someone has low self-esteem, then they should have a counselor. They should see a therapist, right? That's a separate matter. But this is just about a realistic assessment of our condition. Now, this is where I am right now. This is an honest look in the mirror. And how can I go forward in a real way, for real Krishna consciousness? We want to feel that in the depths of our heart. Oh, I am so desperate for real Krishna consciousness. And I'm ready to pay whatever price is necessary for that. And that may be painful, that may be humiliating. It will be painful, it will be humiliating, right? But we want to understand how valuable this actually is. How high is this goal? And when we hear from our divine guardians, and we're so fortunate, we have this type of divine nectar, recorded in the English language and translated in many other languages too. That's like giving us this perspective, how valuable this is, right? We're hearing what is their high vision, what is their divine feeling. It is a privilege. Really, like, it's not in every day of Lord Brahma that you're going to come across something like this. Like, what is the heart inspiration of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj? This is not a common thing. How many millions of years will pass, or billions of years, before some wealth of this caliber comes again, right? It's not something we want to take for granted. So this is why we are always trying to tap into the revealed truth, because we're allowing this higher vision to adjust us, right? I love this quote of Srila Sridhar Maharaj where he says, "Let the Vaishnava enter the workshop of your heart." Let the Vaishnava enter the workshop of your heart. Our Gurudev also expresses very sweetly, we are like lumps of clay in the hands of our Guru. So we have to first acknowledge that our perception is very limited. We were non-existent. So we want to rely on the vision, the perception of the higher souls. And as our Gurudev said, right, in these songs, our gurus, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and other Vaishnavas, they're guiding us. They're showing us what is the mood. And then I can also add another point, right? And this is a point that our dear mentor and friend Shuddha Shabha Prabhu used to make, that we don't want to imitate. And see, one response that I notice sometimes is in persons when they're becoming exposed to this literature and these expressions, is there's this, we've talked about this before, but there's like this kind of comparison, like immediate comparison with ourselves. And then if we feel we can't live up to that or follow that, then there's a tendency to reject, right? Like to the extent that I had this one person once who joined one of our meetings and who wanted to justify drinking bone broth, right? And I said, like, if you need to drink bone broth, that's your business, but don't try and change the philosophy, to make that a thing. Like, if you need to do that, and she wasn't initiated also, I said, that's like, if you need to do that, that's okay, that's your business for health reasons, but we don't need to introduce that into our daily menu in our temples, but thank you very much. So what I mean to say is like I feel that just being able to appreciate, that's a very wonderful thing. Like, we may not be able to follow, we may not be able to feel. We may read these expressions of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and say, I don't feel like that at all. And that's okay, that's honest. But then but why do we have to like change the philosophy or change the conception so that we're not supposed to feel like that? Like, let's just honor the fact that this great Vaishnava feels like that. I may not have humility myself, but I can worship the humility of others. There's great value in that. There's great value in that. Oh, what humility Bhaktivinoda Thakur has. And that was something Srila Prabhupada used to talk about, like he would, like for example, these expressions of Kaviraj Goswami, they're so extreme and painful. And Srila Prabhupada said, are we supposed to imitate that? Are we all meant to go around like, oh, I'm lower than a worm stool? Like, do you really feel like that? Like, no, and it's okay to not feel like that. Like, let's be real. Just having like a clear and honest assessment of where our position is, that goes a long way. So let me just worship Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Let me worship Kaviraj Goswami for the level of humility that they have. Like, I'm not ready for that much humility. They're way up here and I'm here, and that's okay. And I'm comfortable with where I am right now, and I'm slowly taking my baby steps, right? I'm just happy I didn't blow up at the person who jumped ahead of me in the queue today. Like, I'm doing good. That's the level I'm at. Are we gonna like all go and imitate that? Who's that Brahmin, and what's his name in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he puts the worms back, and he has this infection in his skin, and the worms, they're falling out of these sores, and he's so deeply in Krishna consciousness. He has compassion for the worms. He's so detached from his body. He's literally picking up the worms and putting them back into his body. Are we all meant to go around and imitate that? I mean, no, let's just worship. Was it Vasudeva Vipra? Maybe Vasudeva Vipra. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's described how it was I think it was in South India, and Mahaprabhu was traveling there in South India, and that Brahmin heard about Mahaprabhu coming, but somehow missed him. And Mahaprabhu like went through his village, and the Brahmin missed him. And then the Brahmin found out he just missed Mahaprabhu, and he was feeling this deep separation and sadness that he missed the Lord. And Mahaprabhu, he'd already passed by some distance, and he could feel that pull, that devotional heart, and he turned back. And he went back and he met that Brahmin, he embraced him, and I believe after that his this condition on his skin, it disappeared. But it mentions that like this was the level of his Vaishnavata, that he had compassion for those worms in his body, and he put them back in. Right? So we worship that. We appreciate that type of humility, that type of Vaishnavata. We hear, was it Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, right? He would give his dandavats on the ground to the dogs in Navadvip. Right? We hear this about some of the Babajis, right? Because they're really seeing, they have that vision, that they're seeing the Lord's divine presence everywhere. He's actually living in the real Navadvip, not just on the cover like ourselves. So he's giving his obeisances on the ground to the animals and the dham. But are we supposed to imitate that? No, that's not helpful. And this is where Saraswati Thakur is so helpful for us, because he's actually showing us an example. This is the Acharya, one who teaches by an example. The Acharya is someone who's living in awareness of the mundane condition. And, because these, like the Avaduts, the Babajis, they're living completely aloof from this mundane plane, just living directly in relationship with the Lord. But that example isn't helpful for us, right? And so then, the Acharyas, they're showing us, what is the example helpful for us to follow in our condition, right? But I mean, just to say, right, there's so much, it's so helpful for us to understand what is our position and what is our place within our practice, and to accept, right, I'm here, that person's there, this person's way up there, and it's okay, and what's appropriate for me, right? And it's okay that I'm not way up here, right? I'm down here. This is my level. And I'm honoring those who are up there. I'm worshiping them, right? And this is my guiding star, right? We can look at these expressions of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's like a guide for us. Oh, this is the evidence of real progress. That you feel that you're nowhere. That's when you know you're like Isaac Newton, right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj quotes Isaac Newton. Oh, I just feel I'm on the shore of the ocean of knowledge collecting some pebbles, right? That's when you know someone's actually getting somewhere, when they're realizing that they're nowhere. So all of these expressions, they're lighthouses, right? They're showing us the way, giving us some perspective, giving us some guidance, giving us some inspiration, right? Some clarity. And it may be that the best we can do is simply worship that. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he expresses that we should judge a person according to their ideal. We should judge a person according to their ideal. If we can simply increase our appreciation for the ideal of Krishna consciousness, that's a very great thing. We should not underestimate the value of that. The more that we can appreciate in a genuine way, in a non-envious way, that is real progress. That is real progress. So we want to embrace this conception of positive humility. We want to worship that. Right? And you know, if we are going on in good association, we're going on with hearing and chanting, then that will slowly that will grow in us. Right? Because the more that we appreciate, the more that we increase our appreciation for what this is, the more we understand the value of what this is, the more we will naturally feel humility, right? The more we will begin to feel in a very deep way how high and how great this is. The more we will feel correspondingly small. That humility will naturally develop in us. So we want to constantly expose ourselves to the divine stream of Krishna consciousness that is coming from the lips of the great souls, our divine guardians. And that will inspire us, guide us, uplift us, bless us. Those are my thoughts on that subject.
Didi, it reminds me that speaking of imitation, Srila Janardhan Maharaj likes to tell this story where a disciple of Srila Swami Maharaj was speaking with Srila Swami Maharaj, and he was saying, "Oh, I'm the lowest of this, I'm the lowest of that." And Srila Prabhupada bluntly says, "You are the lowest of nothing. You're you're not the lowest of anything."
Right. Yeah, it's very funny. Ego. I really like one comment of Gurudev where he said, "Ego. It is an expanding world." Right? Because we see it's a curious thing how ego can enter into any situation. There can even be an ego about being humble, right? Like I'm the most humble, or or I'm cleaning the toilets. I'm so humble. That even the ego can come there. There can be an ego that comes from being very wealthy. There's an ego that comes from being very poor. There's an ego that comes from having the top position. There's an ego that can come from having the lowest position. Right? It is a very curious thing. So we have to be like vigilant always, to be alert, not let that touch us, right? To try to stay aloof from that. Let me see our chat here. Oh, this is a nice comment from Abhishek. In the first part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, everyone's trying to prove why they are not the best devotee of the Lord. Oh, Scarlett's asking, yeah, this is Loving Search for the Lost Servant. Yeah, this is a book which we were referring to. Marie says, there's a small danger, the temptation to keep making ourselves smaller because we are afraid so that the Lord get bigger than our current understanding of him. A quote from Srila Prabhupada, how can we ask Krishna to accept us because we turned our back towards him? We can just be recipients of the mercy of the Lord with humility. There's one interesting quote of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, very touching, where he kind of references this idea, saying that, oh, and I like this quote of Marie here too, about filling a cup. You have to, our cup has to be empty before we can be filled. Because our Gurudev has mentioned that idea too. But yeah, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, on this point of like turning our back, there's this very touching expression of Srila Sridhar Maharaj where he's expressing this mood of prayer that you know, oh, we have to bring ourselves back to the Lord, you know, saying, oh, please forgive me, you know, I turned away from you, you know, please take me back, you know, please excuse me for that. Nice nice comments from our group. Batishta is the last snare of Maya. Yes, indeed. Well, any other comments or questions from our group? Radhana Rupini has her hand raised.
Didi, is there a fine line, or because we can feel, you know, we can say to ourselves, oh, I'm just not getting anywhere and I'm not advancing, or I'm the least advanced, you know, I'm like saying things that are like to try to make ourselves smaller. We'll become also a little bit self-defeated, you know. So there's, I mean, I think I also feel like, yeah, it's not good to think, oh, I'm the best, you know, I'm a hot devotee or whatever. But at the same time, in our stage of our Krishna consciousness, sometimes if we think ourselves too low, in a way that we become self-defeated and go, what's the use? What's the use? I'm going to stop. What's the use? Or something, you know, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes. Yes, I mean, it's a very nice point, and I think it follows on from what I was saying at this point about imitation, right? Like our humility has to be real. There's also a lot of fake humility that goes around, right? And the, you know, the real devotees, their humility can be expressed in surprising ways, you know. You know, there's material ego, but there's also a spiritual ego, right? And we saw with our, and you know, one interesting thing, this was something that at least 2 of Gurudev's personal servitors told me, that it was like a theme that they experienced. It was Nakul Prabhu, and also I think Saraswati Didi also, they both, that Gurudev was often encouraging them to be confident in their service. That was something that he encouraged in them. And now what I can say on this point is that, see, in the life of a surrendered soul, their autonomy is being handed over to the Lord. So what I mean to say is their source of strength is no longer themselves, right? So there's a confidence and optimism that comes out of that, that my support is not me and my limited capacity and ego, but my support is coming from the higher world. I have the backing of Guru, right? I'm putting myself in their care, and they are powerful. They can do anything, right? Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate ganim yakripatam hambande Shri Guru dinataranam, right? By the grace of Guru, a mute person can become a great orator of poetry. A lame person can climb a mountain, right? By the grace of Guru. So there's this type of conviction and confidence that will come in someone who's feeling their relationship with the Lord. And sometimes our gurus, they're showing a mood that looks almost like arrogance, that it parallels a mundane arrogance, but it's because their conviction is not born out of their own ego, but it's born out of their relationship and their faith, their confidence in the Lord. That my Lord is great. My Lord can do anything. And I may be very low, but my Lord is very great. And I may be very impure, but I have confidence one day I will be purified by the grace of the Lord and Guru and Vaishnava. So there's this optimism and this confidence that comes out of this relationship with the feeling, this relationship with the Lord. Right? So yes, again, like it's we don't want to imitate humility, and the humility shouldn't be something. It's not like a mental practice, right? And it's not about beating ourselves up, but we also need to encourage ourselves, and we need to be in association that is encouraging us. And we can see, right, how the philosophy can be twisted, right? And can be used as a tool of exploitation, as it has and no doubt is, right? And many in the wrong hands, right? And that's a problem too. People can get scarred because of, the wrong association that's twisting these principles. So we need to be encouraged also, yes. We need to encourage ourselves, and we want association that encourages us. Right? And I think that the example of a student is very helpful. A student needs a good measure of correction, but they also need a good measure of encouragement. Right? There needs to be healthy self-assessment, but there's also hope and optimism. And no matter how many times I fail the test, there's another one that's coming up. Right? And I can try again. I can keep learning my lessons. Right? So yeah, everything has to be seen in the proper perspective, right? And these teachings have to be applied in a careful way, right? In a careful way. And there's this one talk of Gurudev, there's a recording of it, and he's speaking on some of these points, and he mentioned that actually in this talk, I think it's Siddhanti Maharaj, he was glorifying our Gurudev. And our Gurudev said, actually, I cannot say that what you're saying is not true. Siddhanti Maharaj was praising, you remember Chinmoy Prabhu, right? And our Gurudev said, actually, I cannot deny what you're saying, because you are an honorable Vaishnava. And if I disagree with you, then that is disrespectful. So I have to honor your vision. And then he also said, sometimes when Guru Maharaj would give Jai to me, I would also say Jai. So because if Guru Maharaj is saying it, it must be true. So I have to honor that. I had to honor that vision. So this is the thing, right? That our confidence, we have optimism about ourselves, but that's coming from our connection with the higher plane, right? By the grace of Guru, I have something. At least I have hope. At least I have hope. May not have anything else, but I have hope. There's a hope for me because of the relationship I have with the higher. So there's a joy and a confidence and an optimism that comes, an encouragement that comes out of that relationship. So yeah, it's a very good point that you brought up. And we do have a few other hands raised. Kirtida, I would love to hear from you. And by the way, I would just like to mention Rukmini. So good to see you and your children. It's been a while. Very happy to see you. Okay. Okay, yes, Kirtida.
Dandavat, everybody. Thank you for the team today. I think I thought about it a long time, die to live and increase your negativity. At the moment, I learn to accept my humanness. Yes, and go on working, but at the same time accepting my weaknesses. It's just a reflection. It's hard to verbalize the feelings, I think, in different language.
I mean, I like that. That's a nice way of putting it. Accepting our humanness.
Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, we want we want to kind of have some estimation, right, where we are in a realistic way, and where it is we're trying to go, what we're actually capable of right now. Because another problem which can come up and we see is that we have an unrealistic conception of our own capacity in Krishna consciousness, and we rush in too quickly and we burn ourselves out, and our faith can be damaged by that, actually, right? So there is a necessity to have some awareness. Like, remember, it's a long road, right? It's a long journey. It's a long journey. So it's not a journey of a few days or a few years or even a few lifetimes, right? So we're in this for the long haul. We want to be able to stick this through. So we want to have some consideration of that, right? How can I move forward in such a way that I can continue practicing for the rest of my life and the next life, right? You want to consider that. Well, any other last comments before we close for today? And want to thank you all for your participation. It's been a lively meeting. Great to have everyone's input.
Didi, I also remember Gurudev always kind of balancing these things of hopefulness and hopelessness. Because, he'd always say, I'm unqualified, I no qualifications, I was a naughty boy, but he had connection with his guru. And that's the same with Radhana Rupini's point, that like, if you focus too much on hopelessness, what we are lacking, and not on the hopeful, that we have connection with Guru, we have connection with the Lord, then there will be an imbalance. But we always have to remember, we're very hopeful because we have that connection with Guru.
Jai, that's a very, very nice way of framing it, Prabhu. Very, very nice.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Oh, and we also have Vijay Somya Sham with us, Dandavat, tuning in from Limerick, and of course Ramananda Prabhu. Hope I haven't. Oh, Govindanandini has joined us today. It's exciting. Two Brazilian members in our group today. Okay, well, Ramananda Prabhu does have his hand raised. We're coming to the end of our time, but let's hear you, Prabhu.
Sure, yeah. Yesterday I was watching Guru Maharaj lecture. He said Krishna accept as good or bad. Everything he accepts us. Because Krishna is sweet, absolute. So he accepts us as we are. And then he purifies us slowly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Because he's sweet, absolute. He's not judgmental. He's sweet. Yeah.
That's very nice, Prabhu. And I'll share. You remind me. I'll share one thing, which is very hopeful. Very hopeful. This is one. This is one expression. It's Srila Sridhar Maharaj makes this expression, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes a very similar expression. This it's in one of the Gopinath songs, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she also talks about this in one of his talks, that we can go so far as to have this mood in approaching the Lord, that I am your property, and it's up to you to purify me. Like Srila Sridhar Maharaj says that if there's anything wrong with my documents, please correct it. Like, I belong to you. I'm your property. You have to fix me, right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's this one line, ki vichara tava. He says, is this your decision, my Lord, that seeing that I am averse to you, you will leave me alone and you won't give me your mercy? Like, in other words, seeing that I don't want your mercy, you're not going to give me mercy? Like, what's up with that? It's like if a child tries to run away from home and the parents just say, okay, fine. Like, the kid would be like, hey, you're meant to go after me. Right? Like, you're meant to bring me back by the ear and say, no, you belong with us, right? So this type of feeling of intimacy may come in the heart of the souls in their life of surrender, right? Like, I belong to you. I know I messed up, but you're supposed to take care of that, So we're allowed to develop some feeling of closeness like this and dependence. We're wholly dependent. That's what it comes down to. And this idea has been repeated in many ways in our discussion today. Chinmoy was also bringing it up. We're dependent, and our hope is in that we are, the more dependent we are, the more hopeful we will feel. Embracing that. And that's our constitutional position and relationship with the Lord. That's how we will experience happiness and hopefulness, because we are embracing what is our actual relationship and our actual nature, right? To be dependent upon the Lord. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. All these devotees, sincere ki Jai.
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai.
Jai.
Lord Premanande.
Thank you very
Jai
much for
Vishakha Devi
today.
Dasi ki.
Jai.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for your
much.
association.
Oh,
Hare Krishna.
Julian's just tuned
Just
in.
at the last second. He didn't get the time
Julian, I'm
change.
sorry, we're going now. Okay, see you all next time. Haribol. Dandavat.
Okay, Haribol, the words of Julian. Nice to see everyone.